We continue now at the top of Daf Yadalet Amud Aleph Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 14a. The Gemara is now explaining Rava's question on the previous Amud in a fashion of Imtim Salomar, meaning it's going to be a series of questions, and the Gemara explains the first question is as follows. Imtim Salomar, if you are going to say Nazirus Muetas, when it comes to a smaller Nazirus, meaning let's say a person says, I'm going to take upon myself a 30-day Nazirus right now, and in 20 days I'm also going to take upon myself a 30-day Nazirus. So in that case, Kevan da Asari Yomin Hu de Yisrin, since if he's going to start that first Nazirus now and interrupt it after 20 days, it's only going to be 10 days left. So lo solik leholin asara. So those 10 days, that's not going to count for anything. It's not enough time for hair growth. And Rashi over here explains, Imtim Salomar Naziros Muetas Kevan de Ilu Maschil Me'achshav Limnos. What the Gemara means to say is if you're going to suggest that by a small Nazirus, if he starts counting right now, so lo miyasri le mehech nazirus ala asara yamim. If he interrupts that nazirus or this nazirus after 20 days, so he's only going to have 10 days left. V'lo have ben kedei gidol seir. It's not enough time to grow hair. Dein teglachas pachas mishloshim. The hair doesn't grow less than 30 days. So then you'll say, lo salkan leholan asara. So the 10 don't really count, leminyan nazirus, for an actual count of nazirus. To lesbehu gidol seir. There's no growth of hair. Hilkach, therefore, lo chayli lemeachshav. Therefore, you'll suggest that in terms of a nazirus muetas like this, that first term will not start right now. Elalachar esrim yaschel limnos shtei nazirus. Rather, wait 20 days, begin, and then count after 20 days, count 2 naziruses, one right after the other. V'yehei megaleach ben sayim. And he should shave in between. If you're going to suggest that is the case. Again, meaning by a Nazirus Muetzis, you're going to assume that it is not Chal immediately. So that's true by a small one. But then Rava asks, V'adai Nazir Meya Yom. Let's say the first Nazirus is 100 days. So there, if he interrupts it after 20 days, big deal. Kevan de Islay Tamnin Yom and Levasov, since he'll interrupt it, and then he'll resume, he'll still have 80 days left. So then at the end, Salkin, then maybe that really should count. In other words, maybe he should start the Nazirus now, suspend the Nazirus after 20 days for a different term of 30 days, and then go back and resume 80 days, finish off the 100-day Nazirus. Oh, lower, maybe you'll say, no, he shouldn't do that, since that 100 days isn't going to finish. It doesn't really start until the 30-day Nazirus is completed, and then, so the first 20 days there won't be Nazirus at all, then he'll have a 30-day Nazirus, and then he'll have a 100-day Nazirus. And the Gemara continues and asks, V'yim tim salomar chayli. Now, if you're going to say that it is Chal in this case, meaning to say the 100-day Nazirus will start right away, it'll go for 20 days, it'll be suspended for 30 days, and then you'll resume the 80 days. What about in the following case? Amar Hareini Nazir la'achar chaf yom. Let's say a person says, I'm going to be a Nazir after 20 days. That's going to be a regular Nazirus of 30 days. Ume'achshav Nazir olam. But from right now, I'm going to start a permanent Nazirus. So now in this situation, again, with a permanent Nazirus, should that really be Chal from right now, or not? Mahu, what would be the halacha? Michaylo olo. Is that going to be Chal or not? And maybe you'll suggest, Imtim Salomar, maybe you'll say, Hacha over here, Kevan de Efshar is Shulei Chayla, since it's possible to ask to undo that Stam Nazirus, meaning he's taking upon himself from right now a permanent Nazirus. And in 20 days from now, he's taking a regular 30-day term. He can theoretically undo that 30-day term by asking a Chacham and undoing the Neder. So since it's possible to undo it, Chayla, so then maybe you'll say the permanent Nazirus is Chal from right now. But what about Amar Hareini Nazir Shimshon la'achar esrim yom? What if he says that I'm going to be a Nazir Shimshon after 20 days, and umeyachshav Nazir Stam, but from right now I want to start a regular 30-day Nazirus? So over here, so what's the halacha? Hacha over here, lo efshar l'shulei. It's not possible to ask and undo a Nazir Shimshon situation. You can't undo it. So therefore, michai lo, is it going to be chal or not? And Rashi explains, V'imtim Salomar hechadamar me'achshav meya. In the case where he takes upon himself 100-day Nazirus, so Kevan de Efshar lemimne me'achshav esrim, since it's possible to count 20 days now, uliachar demona le'shloshim, and then he'll suspend it for a 30-day count, Efshar lemahadir lemimne tam, and then he can go back and resume the other 80 days, mishum di'ika gidol seir levasof, because there's enough time for hair to grow in that 80 days. So chaylu mehashta, if you assume that it is chal from right now for that reason, now we have the question by the permanent Nazir. Akati ti boilach, you still have the following question. Ha'amar hareini Nazir la'achar esrim. Let's say a person says, I'm a Nazir after 20 days. Ume'achshav Nazir olam. But from now I want to start a permanent Nazirus. So Mao, what's the halacha there? Why is that still a question? Kevan den Nazirus olam less lehefsik. The question of the Gemara is, by a permanent Nazirus, there is no interruption. It really just keeps going on forever. In a situation where you start a 100-day Nazirus, so hu dikal amemar demona esrim, it makes sense. You count 20. Then you count a 30-day term term, you suspend that first one. And then you pick up and you resume for 80 days. It's going to start right away from the moment that he says 100 days. Why? Because since this is a kind of Nazirus that's going to stop anyway, it'll stop after 100 days. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with suspending it in the middle. In other words, a Nazirus that has an end can also be suspended midway through. But if he's saying that from now he wants to start a permanent Nazirus, the Nazir Olam ain't lo hefsek. A Nazir Olam, a permanent Nazirus, there is no interruption. The only reason why by a Nazir Olam he shaves every 30 days, that's just because the hair is getting heavy. It's not an actual interruption of the Nazirus. And since there is no interruption, we shouldn't suspend it midway. And since that's the case, maybe you'll argue, wait the 20 days, have the 30-day Nazirus, and only after that begin the permanent Nazirus. That was the question in terms of the permanent Nazirus. And the Gemara continues with another question. Amar, what if a person says, Kimoshe b'shiva ba'adar? He says, like Moshe Rabbeinu on the 7th of Adar. What would be the halacha in that situation? And Rashi explains, Amar hareini Kimoshe b'shiva ba'adar, demashma Kimoshe shenifter b'shiva ba'adar. It's referring to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu, he died on the 7th of Adar, and it's like saying it's a sad occasion, b'shiva lo shosa yayin. In other words, in that situation, so from that point in time, because of what happened, he's saying he's going to refrain from wine. Nazirus olo. Is that considered an expression of Nazirus or not? And Tosfos over here elaborates, Amar Kemoshe bezayin ba'adar mahud v'yom hivoldo dahayin bezayin ba'adar, because Moshe Rabbeinu was also born on the 7th of Adar, Samchu Simcha Gedola, that was actually a day of celebration. Uv'yom Moshe bezayin ba'adar, but on the other hand, he also died on the 7th of Adar. Misdam aravim nodru b'neder v'rabu nazirim b'Yisrael. It makes sense that on that date, people would take upon themselves Nazirus, machmas tsar, because of the pain. And so again, that's the question over here. When he says Kemoshe bezayin ba'adar, what exactly is he referring to? Is he taking upon himself a Nazirus? And the Gemara continues, Peshot minayu kadmai, so we can answer from this series of questions. We can answer the first question from a Tosefta. The Tosefta says, Hareini Nazir la'achar esrim yom. If a person says, I'm a Nazir after 20 days, and I want to start a 100-day term from right now, Mona esrim, he counts 20, v'yachakach mona shloshim, then he suspends that 100-day one, and he counts 30, v'yachakach mona shmonim, and then he resumes the 100-day, he counts the 80 days, kedei lahashlim Nazirus rishon, in order to finish that first Nazirus. So you see from the Tosefta that the 100-day Nazirus does in fact start immediately. And the Gemara continues, Nitma bimei beno. Let's say you have a situation over here where the person becomes tamei during the term of Nazirus that he is serving for his son. And Rashi explains, Nitma bimei beno, he becomes tamei during the term of Nazirus for his son. Hai diyamar hareini nazir k'sheyehei libein v'nazir stam. We're going on the case in the Mishnah. Person says, I'm a nazir when I have a son, and I'm also going to be a nazir starting from right now. So Hischel Monas Shalo, he starts his own Nazirus right now. V'yad Shalo Hishlam Es Shalo, then he doesn't even complete his Nazirus. No Lo Ben, and he has a son. So the Mishnah said, Meiniach Es Shalo, he now suspends his Nazirus. Umones Shel Beno, and he counts the one for his son. V'im Nitma Besoch Yam Halalu Shemana Leveno. So the question now is, what if he becomes Tameh right within the Nazirus that he's counting now for his son? So what exactly is going to be the halacha? Because generally, when a person becomes Tameh in the middle of a Nazirus, it starts the count all over again. So in this case, he's kind of becoming Tameh in the middle of the term for his son, but it's also in the middle of his own term, but that was suspended. And so that's a machlokas amoroim. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Sos. Rabbi Yochanan says it undoes everything. And Reish Lakish Amar Eino Sos. Reish Lakish says it doesn't undo his own Nazirus, because that's been suspended right now. He's doing the Nazirus for his son. So maybe it undoes the one for his son, but does not undo his own Nazirus. Rashi explains, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Sos, Af Osan Yamim Shemona Kvar Shalom, meaning even the days that he did for himself, those also, they don't count anymore. And Rashi explains over here, because since when he's counting his own, so there is no shaving in between them. What actually happens is it all becomes like one long Nazirus in terms of the shaving. Can Nazirus arichta dami? It merges all together like one long Nazirus. Therefore, if there's Tumah that interrupts, it actually undoes everything he counted, not only for the Nazirus for his son, but also for the Nazirus Nazirus for himself, it interrupts the entire thing. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Again, Rabbi Yochanan says soser, and Reish Lakish Amar Eino soser. Reish Lakish says it doesn't undo it, and Rashi explains Reish Lakish Amar Eino soser as shalo. It doesn't undo his. The Nazirus didei lechud v'divino lechud, because his Nazirus and the Nazirus for his son are two separate things. So yes, it undoes the count in terms of the Nazirus term that he's serving for his son, but it doesn't undo the Nazirus of his. It doesn't undo his own Nazirus. And the Gemara explains, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Sos, Rabbi Yochanan says it undoes the entire thing. Chada Nazirus Arichti, the whole thing is considered one long Nazirus. Reish Lakish Amar Eino Sos, Reish Lakish says it doesn't undo the whole thing. Nazirus Didei Lechud V'divrei Lechud, because his Nazirus is an independent one, and the one for his son is considered independent, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yudalid Amud Beis.